now to our economics editor, Thandeka Gqubule-Mbeki, who's at the University of Johannesburg. She's attending a symposium at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, as well as Development Studies. Good afternoon. Talk us about the life and times of Sampie Terreblanche. That was the topic of discussion this morning. Tell us more about it.
Good afternoon. What an amazing life it has been. He is an amazing economist, the historian of the economic history of South Africa, and arguably one of the most loud voices on the role of business during apartheid and the moral limits of markets. But joining me to explain more about Sampie Terreblanche's amazing legacy is Professor from the University of Johannesburg. Welcome and hello.
Thanks. It's Patrick Bond, actually from WITS, but we're using UJ partly because this book by Sampie Terreblanche has set off an explosive debate. Was there too generous a concession in the transition by the Mandela-led ANC negotiating team to white business and also international business? What an extraordinary day, because we are celebrating the legacy of a great economist while he's alive. He's beaming in by Skype, but he does have terminal cancer, and this is the kind of moment where we wish not just this small book, but all of his other books are better known by all South Africans.
He advocated a wealth tax. He said South Africa must tax the wealthy to fund things like free education, free higher education in particular. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, you know, in 1994, the overall corporate tax rate was 56%. It's gone down to 28%. And so big business has had more or less record profits, usually third, fourth, fifth highest in the world. We have the highest valued stock market in world history in relation to the size of the economy. So Sampie's always observed that and said, it's just not right. The beneficiaries of apartheid, whites, few were put in jail, a few declared amnesty, but the economic beneficiaries never paid the dues. And now that these companies have made record profits and taken them to London through offshore listings, it's really not fair that the worst inequality in the world has gotten much worse, and also that these corporations have proven again and again to be very corrupt. PricewaterhouseCoopers labels our companies in Sandton the world's most corrupt in their biannual economic crimes reports. Definitely a wealth tax is overdue.
He also believed that South African companies and businesses should have paid some form of reparations for their collaboration with apartheid. What do you think?
Well, yes, and you see the logic in that argument is that there was super cheap labor power. It was partly the women put in the homelands who were reproducing the male labor, ensuring that the men would get to the mines, the fields, the factories. But they were ultra cheap because the women weren't allowed to live in the cities, and so the men didn't have the whole household reproduction cost. Women bore that. No, normally you'd get a government providing you health care or education, or you'd get a pension from your company, but during apartheid, businesses just got away with not paying that stuff. Women had that. So Sampie's always been arguing a crime against humanity, apartheid, and business collaboration, very high profits, has to be redressed. And because we didn't, we've got a terrible inequality, the worst in the world, both income and wealth inequality, number one. And we haven't done much to, in a sense, ensure a real welfare state. We have tokenistic welfare, 380 rand a month to raise a child. It's just not enough. And we have big budget deficits, and so we, under the thumb of the big credit rating agencies now, the sort of state capture from the big Manhattan agencies, Standard & Poor's, Fitch and Moody, all of that could be much reduced if a good government had more money and redistributed. We may not have a good government, it's not redistributing very much, but certainly big business and whites and the wealthy in this country have had it good.
Sampie Terreblanche also believed that our transition to democracy was a sellout. In fact, he used the terms elite transition. What would you say about that? You've also written about that, Patrick Bond, haven't you?
Indeed, and this is why this little book, and Gqubule-Mbeki's company, it's called KMM Review Publishing. Gqubule was here to introduce this book. Fantastic contribution, because he does go through the sort of dynamic in the early 90s where the balance of power had been so strong towards something more redistributive, a freedom charter with nationalizing, mines, banks, and big business, or a reconstruction and development program. So why was the balance of forces shifted so that Nelson Mandela didn't operate from a position of strength and had to make these big concessions, big deals with international agencies? Sampie, in a short book, has said it all, but he's written a 600-page book we're discussing after lunch. That is Western Empires from Penguin Books. And, these are exceptional intellectual contributions because Sampie Terreblanche was a broederbonder. He was the vice chair of the board of SABC, right up at the top, and he said, it's not right, let's tell the truth.
Sampie Terreblanche has made a phenomenal contribution to the economic theories about the transition to democracy in South Africa. In his book, A History of Inequality, he traces the roots of our gaping Gini coefficient and the deepest inequality in the world. Back to you in the studio.
Thandeka Gqubule-Mbeki coming to us live there from the University of Johannesburg.